welcome to Immediate Immersion Live. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody got a great new start to the new year. I hope everybody is back in the swing of things with classes. We went back yesterday. Today was the last normal day of the semester. Tomorrow and Thursday are our final exams, and Friday is wrap up. And next week we start a new semester, and for us, new kids, because we're on a 4x4. Not my favorite schedule, but it is what it is. So let me know how your new year is. Let me know how it's been going, if it's been going great. If you're excited for 2025, let me know what you've got in store. Go ahead and put it in the chat, or if you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and put it in the comments. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about writing assessments and moving away from those traditional ones and moving into ones that are much more connected to real life tasks. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you don't know, my name is Scott, and you're watching Immediate Immersion Live, where we're all about comprehension-based instruction in the modern language classroom. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And welcome back. I forgot to mention before we get started, let me go ahead and put it here in the chat. Our I've got it mixed up. Our Assessment Academy is starting this Saturday, the 11th. Let me put the link up here, mm.us/academy. So if you're interested, then you want to go ahead and go to this link and sign up. There is a $20 coupon available till tomorrow. If you type in Academy, it will get you $20 off as a coupon code through tomorrow through Wednesday. What tomorrow's date? The 8th of January. What is this course all about? It has 10 pre-recorded classes that you can watch at any time. Once the 11th starts, so it opens up on the 11th. You can watch them in any order, as many times as you like. And then I believe it's in March, the end of March, I have 2 live classes scheduled. One is Q&A. So ask any questions about assessment, standards-based grading, standards-based assessments, proficiency-based grading, any of that kind of stuff. Live Q&A. And then we'll follow up with a live, what I call calibrating the rubric, where we will listen to speaking assessments and writing assessments, and we'll look at them and we'll grade them together using a rubric so that we can kind of calibrate what the rubric looks like, so we can get a little bit better idea on how to use the rubric to assess more holistically, more proficiency-based. So if that's something you're interested in, please go to mm.us/academy and sign up. Again, $20 coupon if you use the word Academy as the coupon code, and it starts on Saturday the 11th, so I hope to see you there. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with today's topic. Let's start with talking about mere real-world situations. So our goal is always, let me get this off the screen here. Our goal is always to design writing tasks that mirror real-world situations. This current school that I work at uses the textbook, and it leans into the textbook heavily. And as I'm working through, I teach with CI even though we're a textbook, but the final exams that they create are almost 100% from the textbook. So I also have to kind of work some of that in there. But it's funny because the things they ask them to do, not the other teachers, but the textbook asks the students to do for writing, isn't real world. It's things that they'll never, ever, ever have to do in the real world. And it doesn't make sense, and it actually confuses the kids more than doing something else would. For example, they have one of the writing sections is that they have to come up with the questions that would get the answers that they provide. So they'll put the answers down there, and then kids have to come up with the questions for that. That's not how we communicate in the real world. We don't start with the answers and then come up with the questions. I get the idea of what they're trying to do is try to teach them how to write questions or how to speak questions, but there's a better way to do that by just engaging in a live Q&A. That's how it's more applicable. So what I want to do with writing is I always want to make, or anything I do in my classroom, is I want to make it real world. So another example is in the writing section of the test, they have to fill in the blank with the appropriate conjugated verb. Sometimes they give them the verb in parentheses, and other times it's a reading activity as well, where they have to read and understand the sentence and figure out which verb goes in there and then conjugate it. But again, not a real world application of doing that. It's much more logical to have them write something and say you want it written in the first person plural, or you want it written in the past tense, or you want to include, this, and this to get certain grammatical aspects to come out. That's much more realistic. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm always looking to do. When they have something, the book is asking for them to do something weird like that, I find a way to make it more realistic. So one example is having kids write personal letters or emails or text messaging. So have students create these things to peers or to fictional characters, or simulating real life communication in a professional or informal context. One of the ways that I love doing this is pairing it up with a book. So I might first have kids write letters or text messages or emails to the actual characters in the book. And then I might have another student play the role of that character and respond back to what they're talking about as if they were the character. Or another thing to help engage them is to see if the author of the book that we're reading is available either for a real life live like a Zoom where they can ask questions in the target language of them, but most likely not, or the time changes don't work well. So then they can write questions to the author, and I can email them to the author, and the author can then respond. And they might do a recorded response, or they might write a response back. But these kinds of things are simulating real life communication. I know back in the day we used to have pen pals. We used to buy them for like $1 a name with these pen pal companies that we did in our classes. We don't have to do that. We can make an exchange with another class, whether it be in the same school or maybe another local district that you can do, or even better yet, communicate with a sister school in a different country. So if you're teaching German, find someone in Austria or in Switzerland or in Germany. Find a school to pair up with. And then you can alternate doing the writing back and forth in either English so they can practice their English, and then in German so that their students can practice their German. If none of that's available to you, pair up kids in class and have them write letters and emails back and forth to each other. It's a great way to get them to really practice doing things in real world. Another idea are reviews and recommendations. So assign students to write product reviews, restaurant critiques, or movie recommendations, or gosh forbid, recommendations about their silent reading books. These types of tasks they already encounter on websites or social media. So giving them a chance to do this in real life. And it might be a positive or a negative. Let them choose how they want to do it. Maybe they had a really bad experience with X company. And so they're going to go ahead and write that out in a review, as if maybe they were doing a Google review on the internet, or an Amazon review. Maybe it's a product, and you have everybody look at the product, and then they write a review about it as if they were going to submit it to Amazon after they purchased it. These are real good ways to get them to do things they would really do in the real world. And what's great about this particular activity is you can scale it up or down depending on the level. So it could be really, really simple. Let's say it's a movie. So then you can just have them write key words that would apply to that movie. It's an action movie. It's a comedy movie. It's a romantic movie. It was good. It was bad. It was funny. Different things like that. And they can start with just putting in there maybe 5 adjectives to describe it. And then maybe a second go around is they can then turn those 5 adjectives into 5 sentences. And you can scaffold it any way that you need. And for your upper levels, obviously you're going to demand much more text in there, much more reasoning. You can also start with a template where you give them the structure and then they just fill in the blanks that would complete that to give them a more fulfilled critique of what they're doing. There's lots of different ways to scaffold it for a variety of levels, because you don't have to say, well, my kids can't write, so they're in level 1, so I can't do this activity. They can. You just have to scaffold it appropriately. And a great way to get maybe one of these templates is to cheat. Yes, I'm telling you to cheat. Go to ChatGPT and say, can you create for me, in Spanish or French or Mandarin or whatever language you teach, a restaurant review template, leaving blanks for where kids can adapt it. And then it will give you something that you can actually use in your classroom. You might have to tweak it a bit. Maybe it comes out perfect. You don't have to tweak anything. But make that a template, and now you have something you can use for your students. A third thing are job applications or cover letters. This is great because you're teaching multiple skills here, because job applications and cover letters are universal. So they're not language specific. So you're teaching the kids how to fill out job applications, how to write a cover letter. It doesn't matter what language it's in. But then you're having them incorporate with language by having them do it in the target language. So it could be a fictitious job. You could go online and find some jobs that kids might be interested in, and then they can adapt their application and cover letter to that specific job. It could be that everybody's going to apply to McDonald's or your local fast food joint, because that's kind of typically a first job for most kids. Any of those things are great ideas, but they get some real world application of actually using the language outside of a contrived textbook or workbook page. And again, you can simplify this because you could scaffold this. A job application where they're just filling in data from themselves is really easy for a level 1 kid to do. Their name, their telephone number, their address, those types of things. Really easy for them to fill out. Or even a cover letter. Again, you can start with a template and they can just customize it by filling in blanks with key things that pertain to them to make it more personalized. And then you can work your way up from there. So there's lots of different things. Think about things in the real world that we have to do and then bring it into the classroom. That's the whole point of mirroring the real world situations when we have them do some kind of authentic writing. Number 2. Oops, did I close the wrong one? I did. I meant to hit that one. There we go. Purpose-driven writing. So a lot of rubrics in the AP and the IB talk about audience. And you have to think about the audience that you're writing to. So that's incorporating the purpose and the audience when you're writing. Is the purpose to persuade or to inform? Those you're going to write different things depending on that. And then who is your audience? Is your audience somebody who's really formal? So it's got to be like a business writing. It's got to be really formal. Or is it to a friend or a family member where it can be really informal? So they have to think about this when they're writing. So one idea is to create a blog post or social media content. So kids are all about social media. Blogs, at least for kids, probably not so much. That's more of the older generations, but maybe you can still get that to work. But what kids like is social media content. They're into the TikToks and the Instagram in there to be able to make the different things that are going on. Twitter, or now it's called X. So have students write blog entries or social media posts on topics relevant to their interests, practicing concise and engaging language for specific audiences. So let's say you're going to have them do a social media post. Now, without permission, I would not have them engage on actual social media. There's a couple ways around this. First of all, most social media requires your kids to be at least 13 years of age or older to create an account. You want to make sure that you get the parents' permission for them to create a social media. Some kids aren't allowed to have social media account. And third, it would make it a private class-only social media account, meaning only the teacher and other students in their class period are they going to allow to see their posts. They're going to friend only those kids, nobody else. But that can get messy and it gets complicated. So you can leave it all behind by making mock social media posts. It could be digitally or it could be physically on paper. So let's say they're going to make an Instagram post. Well, you need a graphic and then you need the caption that goes below it. So let's say we're doing it on something like, we're going to start next week is things kids like to do, their favorite activities. So guess what? I have a kid who likes to play football. So he's going to draw a picture, or if it's a digital version, find an attractive picture that depicts football. That's what he's going to put up there. And then he's going to write something at the bottom about how he plays football, he likes football, he watches football, his favorite football team is, etc. down below. And that's something they would really, really do. But here we're just having them do it offline, whether it be digital and not published online, or doing it on piece of paper. You can do this in Canva quite easily. So you can make a template in Canva where there's a blank for put the image and then a spot for them to write their text. And then you can share it with your kids on Canva. Canva will give you a free account as a teacher, and then it allows your kids to also use it for free. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there to do that kind of thing digitally. And then kids can turn it in or print it out and turn it in, however, or email it to you so you can see it so you don't waste paper if that's not what you want to do. But you might want to print them out and then hang them on the wall. I use my windows. So I have windows in my classroom. So I want my people outside of the class to see them. So I will tape them from the inside of the window facing outward. So as people walk in the hallway, they can see what they have there. It's a great way for them to be able to do things that are really realistic again. It's real world type activities, and it's not something that the textbook does. Another idea is to role play as a professional. So students can take on roles like journalist, a scientist, or customer service representative and write reports, articles, or problem-solving responses based on their profession. And again, we can look at the purpose and the audience that we're trying to connect with. So for like journalists and scientists, they're probably more on the informational side. Customer service representatives, they are there usually trying to fix a situation that someone may have had. So you might propose, you could write from the customer standpoint, a complaint about something that happened on something like on an airplane or at a restaurant. And then they can take the role of the customer service representative and then respond back to that. Or it could also be maybe it's a journalist who specializes in controversy, so they can be on the persuasive side, or pose both sides of the controversy equally so people can make the decision on their own. Lots of different ideas here. And it's invoking a lot of different parts of the brain as they're doing this. Are they, if they're coming up with information, they might do some research along the way. Or problem solving, they have to think through those situations. All of these will be based on the people that they're commuting back to and on the profession, the role that they're playing. And it's kind of fun for kids to play this way, and it gets them to that higher order thinking, which is always great for instruction, because you can really see what kids can do. And again, you can still do this in your lower levels. Just scaffold it. Give them a template to work from, and they just add their own words to the template to make it their own. Great things to do. And lastly, for purpose-driven writing is peer-to-peer feedback. So encourage students to write feedback or critiques for each other's work, helping them practice giving constructive criticism in a collaborative, real-world setting. You're going to have to teach this because kids are tough. They are tough on themselves and they are tough on each other. So usually, like when I do a calibration of the rubric with my students, the problem comes up as they are way meaner than I ever would be on something. So I have to teach them how to tone it back. Tell them how to give constructive feedback, to do like the sandwich technique, positive, negative, positive. Phrasing the negative in some way they can grow and become better that way. So you can encourage this, you can teach this so they can do this, and then they can help each other before they turn in their final product to you, the teacher. They can do this peer review first. And it's very helpful. It gets kids thinking in a more critical way. And when they're being more critical to someone else's writing, when they go back to their own, they can see some things that they might not otherwise have been able to see. Anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat or in the comments during the replay. I'll be happy to answer you back. Next, let's go ahead and talk about authentic assessments. And before I forget, because I always do, if you have found this helpful in any way, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help YouTube to get us out to more people. If you know someone directly who might benefit from this, take the link, share it with them so that they can access it and get the information as well. I want to help as many teachers as I possibly can. So thank you very much in advance for doing that. Now, our last topic for today is to use authentic assessments to track growth over time. So first strategy is having them write portfolios. Back when I first started teaching, our high school did something called the electronic portfolio. Every class, they had to create this electronic version of a portfolio, putting up different pieces of work and then reflecting on those pieces of work and why they chose them, so that we could get a wide breadth of information about what they learned in that particular class. So this is a great thing to do, to have students build a portfolio of their work across the entire term. And even going back and revisiting earlier pieces to edit and improve them, showcasing growth in the real world writing skills. And if they are going to improve them, don't have them hide their earlier revisions. Have them show so we can see the progress, or kind of like a pre-test and a post-test, where if they're doing a writing assignment like a quick write, have them put the first quick write of the year in their portfolio, as well as one from the middle of the year, and then one at the last one of the year, so we can see growth. So there's lots of different ways that they can do this type of thing. It's really, really fun for them to be able to see their growth. I know one year it only happened once. When we started in my middle school, when I was teaching my middle school kids, we opened the Spanish program the year I started there. And so the first year, we all taught level 1. And then the second year, we all taught level 1 and 2. And then in the third year, 2 of us teachers, we had 6 teachers at the time, were teaching level 3, and I was one of them. And I had a core 4 or 5 kids that I had first, second, and third year. So I had kept a copy of their writings. I always keep a copy. I keep one from the beginning, one from the middle, and one for the end of the year for all my students. So what I did was, for those 4 or 5 kids that I had, I pulled those out. I showed them their first writing. I gave them back their first writing. And then they had their last writing that they did in Spanish 3. And they can look and compare. And the other kids were kind of upset that they didn't have that. But I didn't have them all 3 years. And not all the teachers kept them like I did. But it was a really fun activity for them to see their growth. So even if you can't do it for that long of a period, at least do it for the year that they're in. It really, really can help and shine so they can see that they actually have learned something. Another strategy is self-assessment and reflections. I am big on reflections. We write a reflection every week. So after completing an assignment, ask students to reflect on their writing process and assess how their work, I'm so sorry, how their work would have performed in real-world contexts. So what we're doing here is we're promoting metacognition, thinking about thinking. And you have to have them do this right after they're doing their writing. Otherwise, they forget and they're not in the moment anymore, and they can't really give a good, thorough reflection of it. But it's really a great idea to have them reflect on it. What did you think? Was this writing easier than the last one you did, or is it more difficult? Why or why not? How do you think this would work out in the real world? Do you think this is an actual authentic piece of writing that you could take out into the real world? All different kinds of questions. And if you all ever forget what type of questions to think, because I'm always running out of reflection questions, I go back to cheating. I go back to ChatGPT and I'll ask them, give me 10 reflection questions that I can ask my students about their writing process to give me some ideas. And then I keep these all in a Google Doc, so I don't have to keep looking them up every time. I keep them in a Google Doc so I can just pull from the Google Doc when I need one to write one. And a third strategy is peer-to-peer collaborative writing. So use collaborative platforms like Google Docs, where students can co-write articles or reports together, mimicking real-world team-based writing projects. So this is a modern way to do you write a sentence and then pass the paper on to the next kid, and then they write a sentence, and then you pass the paper to the next kid, and they write a sentence on there. So they can do this in small groups where they are all working on one Google Doc. Each kid writes in a different color and then writes a sentence or two. And then the next kid in their group will write a sentence or two. And the next kid, and it keeps going around until the writing is done. That's one way to be able to do it, and it's a really fun way. You get really great stories this way, and you can do some really good assessment because you can see which kid wrote it, because not only is it color-coded so you can see where their writing began and finished, but it also has their name in there that lets you know who wrote it. And you can write feedback right to that person so that they can see that feedback right there. So you can do it all digitally without using paper to conserve paper if that's what you like to do. If you're a paper person, you can still do this the old-fashioned way, right on paper. But again, have the kids use different color pencils or different color pens or markers so that you can distinguish whose writing is which. If you can't do that, have them at least draw a line between their writings. So you can say this section is so-and-so, and they sign their name next to their section. And then the next section will be so-and-so, and they'll write their name next to that one and put a line underneath so that you can at least see who wrote what. And it makes it really easy to be able to see the progress, to see the writing, and evaluate overall what they're doing. So those are the strategies that I have to bring authentic writing in the classroom, to step out of that textbook, to step out of the traditional writing that we do and have it more fun, more engaging, and more authentic. If you have any ideas to bring authentic writing into the classroom, please share them in the comments below. I'd love to see them, and I'd love for other people to see them as we share this video out to people that we know in the language community. With that, I'm going to wish everybody a great night. I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week, same time, same channel, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, next Tuesday, the 14th. Everyone, have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.